Protecting animals' rights and pursuing the best form of human health is a very nice and things to do. But when it comes to banning all production and consumption of meat for the purpose of this, will affect the thousands of individuals' lives that are relying on the meat industry and harming towards most of regime principle and inherently unchangeable. What are alternative in solving this? Two things. One, in the status quo, OG have to concede this. There are already arising on non-meat alternative. It means there's an innovation on some companies to actually develop the technologies on creating plants that can change to fulfill human nutrition that have same that OG have explained. So it is not the urgency to over prioritizing and stop production of meat because people are able to wear and grow the alternative anyway. Second, in the status quo, there are already a huge campaigning and education on preventing overconsumption on meat. It means it is a check and balance mechanism that prevent what OG mainly concerned on human health. So there is, though under OO, it is not harming the principle because we don't force people to follow it, but we invite indirectly. Under OG, they force people to follow it, and it is harming the principle of the people. Two arguments under OO. One, why inherently this harm reduce principle. Second, why this is eating meat is equal like alcohol and smoking, and there is a coping mechanism. But before that, I'm going to give some engagement to OG. Firstly, about double immoral, what humans are being conscious. We say that we concede this is an active act, but comparatively, under your side, you harm many humans if you don't have the meat industry. That is why you have to kill animals, even in the course of active act that you have been mentioned. Because there are billions of jobs in this industry. On government, you will fire lots of people, and there's really hard for them to change that kind of industry they have in the status quo. Many developing countries rely on a meat as a big effort. This is because the tech development that is not already efficient to make a vegan food. For individual, government wants to fire farmers who specialize on meat. It is not easy to turn a ranch into a vegetarian farm. There's exactly that it's no likelihood under their side they will solve this kind of existing issues in the status quo. So under their side, 100 people will lose the jobs and 50 people can work under non-meat companies. Under opposition, because there's a still demand on non-meat alternative jobs, now better because 100 employees will still to meat production and 50 new employees will work in the non-meat alternative. They say that vegans are expensive, not affordable because there's a demand. No, because that is only in developed world. Even then, only in the few big cities. In a majority of places, this kind of what OG have mentioned is not affordable because this is because of supply chain that cannot be being that widespread in geographic constraint. Lastly, OG lastly on like they claim that can regulate and lobbying stuff. If government can fiat, you can ban meat. Opposition can fiat, you can regulate meat. Even with lobbying, there's a counter lobby from the vegan industry plus the rise of the market for vegan food. So there's naturally a balancing of meat consumption. On the nutrition, we say that it's unimportant because many factors contribute to health, not meat's fault. This is like our air being clean, pollution, and so on. It's also hard to make sure it is ideal under government of this house. That we can't guarantee that even in the proposal on government, it will solve the issues of the pollution and so on. On cattle that tackle lands, that's exactly what happened under government because the vegan industry. They also take a lot of land to grow of the big amount of trees and so on. Coming to the principle. Coming to the first point on OO, why inherently this harm reduces principle? We say that unlike OG claim, the principle of this, like the purpose that unlike under OG about their justification, under OO we have to kill the animals, and this is justified to do because there are most interests that have to be catered under religion and culture that already passed down from generations to generations. That is why the reason why you must kill animals. This is justified because there's a part of religion and culture that have already been passed down from generation to generations. For people to not eat animals, they feel like they are making a sin for betraying their ancestor, staining their culture. So to dictate what cultures under government are valid is also immoral under governments under the house. We say there is a huge unchangeable value that are included in a religious context. What are them? For example, there are huge beliefs on what religions have delivered to scriptures that inherently cannot be changed because that are the values that are not constructed by human. For example, on Christianity, the scripture on Bible includes that humans have greater value than other creatures, plants and animals. Therefore, all of the nature exists for the sole purpose of serving the needs and interests of man. What does this show you? Unlike OG have claimed, it is exactly unchangeable, ladies and gentlemen, because the way of Bataknis consume pigs as their main traditions, like on how Muslims use cows as their sacrifice to God, this is a value that unchangeable. That unlike OG said, cannot be adapted in the status quo because this is not constructed by human, because there is the scripture said for the people. So under government, they will reduces the amount of capabilities of these religious people, of this kind of cultural value that will harming the principle and the essence of the vulnerable actor that have the main interest in this debate. We say that under OO, we don't want to reduce this kind of harm. That is why exactly under OO, this kind of banning will give more harms than good. Lastly, on eating meat is equal as smoking, alcohol, etc. We say that eating meat is a form of escapism. Most of people have their own alternative to reduce their level of stress on their work, on their financial issues, on their relationships, and so on. For specific people that only have relief of stress on eating meat are equal as smoking alcohol. That is exactly the only way to relieve the stress. On government, they will reduce the amount of ability of people that are just can escape from the reality that they have no friend, for example. They will exactly feel oppressed, and that is harming the vulnerable people that are not capable to eating meat anymore. Under our position, we don't want to reduce this. We want to having kind of this coping mechanism that is still in the status quo. Even if it's not ideal, we say it is okay because you become rational after being happy from eating meat and you can get away from the problem. OG cannot have this kind of concern. What is the conclusion here? Firstly, banning meat isn't saving animals. It is actively harming whole section of religion and culture. Second, banning meat comes at the expense of millions of jobs going away while the alternative is still limited in access. What this debate means? One, on a personal levels, the harms are calculated by the consumers. If it happens, it is something worth it, like alcohol and smoking. Lastly, on a macro level, the harms to humans far outweigh the moral victory of saving animals. Based on these several reasons, we're proud to oppose.